Standing on this bridge by Griffin Pritchard in the county of Gwynedd in Wales. In front of me you can see the mountains of Eryri. Had you been standing in this spot on a certain day in June 1869, you would almost certainly have been killed or seriously injured. Less than a quarter of a mile behind me here, there was a massive nitro-glycerin explosion. It would have been one of the largest explosions seen up to that time. And if I just pan round, you can see part of the village of Brynreval in front of us there. And just behind where that bridge is there, that's where the road is, where the explosion happened. Back in June 1869, this would have been the main road between Carnarvon and Llanberis. On one hot day that summer, two horse-drawn carts left the town of Carnarvon. They were heading for Dinorwig slate quarry and they were carrying nitro-glycerin. Nobody at the time really realised how dangerous and unstable nitro-glycerin was. Both of the carters stopped in the village of Cwmaglaw for refreshments in a pub. Now, the village of Cwmaglaw is maybe a quarter of a mile in front of me. After leaving the pub, they continued on their journey, and soon after they passed the railway station, the nitroglycerin in one of the carts exploded, killing both of the carters, David Roberts and Evan Jones. The explosion would have happened pretty much where I'm standing now. There were two large craters here. Obviously, when one cart exploded, it caused a chain effect where the second cart also exploded. Nearby, a 26-year-old quarryman called Robert Morris was heading home to the village of Brynreval, which I was just at earlier, and he was killed in the explosion. Another victim who was nearby at the time, John Jones from the village of Cwmaglaw, he was also killed and he was aged 11. I've mentioned 4 of the fatalities that occurred on the day. There was another fatality, but I'll mention that one later. That one's particularly sad. Just by the modern road now, which replaced the old road to Llanberis. The site of the explosion is pretty much behind that building you can see in front of us there. And this is where the railway station was located. You can see the building up there, it's a pub now. So the railway line must have run, the railway line used to run where this road is now. So, as I explained earlier, it was just after they passed the railway station that the explosion occurred. In 2008, a plaque was erected here, if I can find it. Now, there was 6 fatalities on the day, and another person died a couple of weeks afterwards of their injuries. I haven't mentioned the 5th fatality that occurred on the day. I will mention that later because I'm going to try and find the grave of that person. Here's the plaque. It's quite hard to read actually from the path here, so high up. The inscription reads as follows: "In memory of those who died or were injured as a result of the powder oil explosion that occurred near this spot on 30th of June 1869. An X inscribed on the dry stone wall on the Llanberis road to Clegir marks where a wheel and harness of one of the carts were found, over half a mile away." I'm just making my way to the spot that's referred to on the plaque where the X is on the dry stone wall. Just stopped halfway just to show you the scenery here. Now the carts would have been making their way to Dinorwig quarry, which is about a mile in front of me on the left hand side there. And you can see the village of Cwmaglaw down there. This is the village that took the brunt of the explosion. There wasn't a house in the village that was left undamaged. Many of the roofs were blown off and 8 people were seriously injured. Many of the injuries that people suffered in the village were broken bones, presumably after having been thrown by the blast. 15-year-old Owen Roberts was the last to die as a result of the explosion, and he died 6 weeks later as a result of his injuries. 3 other carts had left Carnarvon that day, and they were headed to Bethesda, but they were coming along here before turning off towards Bethesda. So they were only a short distance away from the 2 carts that exploded. The carters abandoned their cargo at the side of the road in fear of another explosion. A little bit off topic, but as I do filming locations in these videos sometimes, I just mentioned that they filmed, Michael Mann filmed The Keep not far from here. And there are also some scenes from the film, what's it called? Who Dares Wins. Some scenes were filmed for that here as well. I've already done a video about The Keep, but I plan to remake the video because I'm not happy with, well, I'm happy that I made the video, but it's not very good, so I'm going to remake it soon. Now, I believe the cross in the wall would be here somewhere. Here we are. Now, local people are still maintaining this cross. As you can see, they're using this rock here. Every time they pass, they make sure it stays there. So this is where they found one of the wheels and part of a harness from the explosion. And this spot is half a mile away from the explosion spot. Explosion would have happened in that direction. Even though the event isn't particularly well known, it is remembered in the village. Even though the event has largely been forgotten now, at the time it would have had worldwide implications. The incident soon led to an Act of Parliament which restricted and regulated the carriage of nitro-glycerin. I'm now a few miles away from the village of Cwmaglaw. I didn't name one of the victims earlier. That person is buried in this cemetery, and he was Griffin Pritchard, and he was only 11 years old. Now, I was hoping to locate his grave. Even though this is a very well maintained cemetery, the section where the Victorian era graves are located is very overgrown. Unfortunately, I failed to locate the grave on this occasion. But there's also a possibility that he's in an unmarked grave. Graves from that period are roughly in this location here. On the day of the explosion, he had been with his father to buy sheep. He was leading his blind father when he was killed. His father, Griffin Pritchard, had lost sight following an accident at the Norwich quarry. He was uninjured in the explosion, as were the sheep. But the death of his son left him with nobody to guide him. Now, it was reported that all the victims who died instantly in the explosion were unrecognisable. But seeing as his father was uninjured, I take it that his body was recognisable. So maybe he didn't die instantly, even though he did die on the same day of the explosion. I don't know if he was maybe running ahead of his father at the time, or maybe he was just unlucky and he was struck by something from the blast. This is Llanddyniolen churchyard, so if there is anybody local who knows where he's buried, please let me know.